Now, Mark, while I have you with us, if there's a few minutes that you could take to tell us about Nikola Tesla and the experience that he's had over his time. I know that there's tons of research that you and your team are doing, which I've heard of, and it's amazing that you're developing it. And I know hopefully it's going to be out very soon. And you're also developing and taking donations for the Tesla Science Center to continue to grow it. Let's take a look at some of the slides that you have so we can get a little bit deeper into Tesla.
Sure. So Nikola Tesla was a prolific inventor, like I said. And here's just a listing of some of his inventions that people have built upon and brought into use today. So, for example, the induction motor, which Tesla invented early, the late 1800s, and he was specifically using it for the AC electric distribution, but he knew that there were many uses, using the AC induction motor. That induction motor is what's in the Tesla car. And so the founders of Tesla were able to take some older invention from Tesla, add their own inventions on top of it. So and then create Tesla car and Tesla motors, which is one of the most inspiring, innovative tales for many of us today. AC electric, all of the components that are part of that system, Tesla made that possible. Remote control, built the first remote control anything, the first remote control boat, fluorescent lighting, neon lighting. So prolific inventor, came to work under Thomas Edison in the late 1800s. He was working for the Edison Corp in Paris. And Edison was dabbling in direct current electricity here in New York. And people that were working for Edison realized Tesla was a genius and Edison needed him to work under him. The issue was when Tesla got here, he tried to convince Edison, who he idolized, to switch from direct current electricity and move towards alternating current, that it could go further. It was less expensive to implement. It was more efficient and it was more powerful. So instead of direct current at the time would go a mile or two, you need to have a power plant in every single neighborhood. And it was enough to just power lights. It couldn't power motors. Alternating current would go for hundreds of miles. So less infrastructure. You didn't have to have a coal-fired power plant in the middle of your neighborhood. And it could power the AC induction motors. And so Edison, was not an evil person, in my opinion. He was too invested in direct current. And so Tesla believed he was promised $50,000 by Edison for unlocking some of the issues Edison was having with direct current. And when he did do that work, he was on salary for Edison. So Edison was like, that was like an offhand comment at lunch. That wasn't a real thing. And so Tesla quits, and he ends up getting backed by George Westinghouse. And it becomes this huge battle. Tesla versus Edison, AC versus DC, Westinghouse versus GE, which was General Edison at the time. It became General Electric after they kicked Edison out, after he lost this battle with Tesla. But I tell this story, and some of the inventors in your club, probably understand Tesla's sentiment. Tesla felt that he knew he was an amazing inventor, and he knew he was changing people's lives in the world. So he always felt that the wealthy business people around him would always take care of him. So he could care less about contracts, which is a mistake. You need to have some business mentorship around you to not do what Tesla did, but it was a beautiful, selfless act. He ripped up his royalty contract with Westinghouse, which was worth billions on paper, billions at that time. It was overly generous to Tesla. He should have renegotiated it, but Westinghouse was having a hard time raising capital to compete with Edison. And they knew that if Tesla's contract was amended, it would enable them to raise capital and win this AC/DC battle. Instead, Tesla just ripped up his royalty contract. It's like, you'll take care of me. Don't worry about it. Westinghouse won out the battle with the capital they were able to raise. And later in his life, it was, unfortunately, corporations don't have that kind of memory of person to person. So Westinghouse was not fully in charge of Westinghouse years later, and he wasn't able to take care of Tesla as Tesla had thought he would. But Tesla was one of the original, I guess he believed in sustainable energy. He was an environmentalist. He looked at coal-fired power plants as, that's not the way to go. And this was the inception of the Industrial Revolution with coal and then eventually oil. He's like, listen, those are finite resources. You burn them and they're dirty. Let's use the forces of nature, hydropower, wind power, solar power. Not that they knew how to do solar power yet, but he knew that that's what was coming down the pike. And to a lot of folks, it sounded obviously like science fiction. But Tesla was one of the first people to unlock the power of Niagara Falls. He built the first hydropower plants there. One of them still works. It's not put into use every day, but it is a backup plant. But he was about using the forces of nature to power our lives. And after winning the AC/DC battle here on site, he was funded by J.P. Morgan. So Wardenclyffe was built to do radio transmission to Europe. Tesla was doing early forms of wireless. But you got to understand, he was the man about town. He was high society at this point, early 1901, 1900s. He lived at the Waldorf Astoria in Manhattan. He was friends with Jacob Astor, who also was one of his investors. He was one of the richest men in the world. He was somewhat collegial with Marconi, from what I understand. Marconi was working on wireless and radio just a few miles away from here in Babylon. And then Stanford White, the famed architect, was one of Tesla's best friends, closest friends. And so Stanford White designed this lab. Even if Tesla never had anything to do with this lab, just because it's a Stanford White building, it's a big deal. He did the original Madison Square Garden. He did the Washington Square Arch in Manhattan. But at his time, he was the preeminent architect. And this would be a historical site just from having him involved. But the fact of what Tesla was trying to do here, and you could see the radio tower there. That was the largest tower or structure on Long Island at the time. It would still be one of the largest structures on Long Island. That tower is 187 feet in the air, and the base it went 200 feet into the ground. And he had a spiral staircase that went to the bottom, and then he had tunnels that went out for for people try to figure out what were the purposes. He said he was trying to get a grip on the earth. So that he could send wireless transmission and energy through the earth using the earth's Zenic wave, although Zenic wave was not a term at the time. He just had an idea that there was a resonance of the earth that he could tap into. And all the things that he was trying to do that people thought were just, impossible. And many times he proved them wrong if he had enough time. People are doing it today. Whether it's he invented the Tesla valve, and it's a one-way flowing valve with no moving parts. And he's like, there's no use for today, but people are going to use it in the future. And now it's being used in biomedical devices. It's being used in the gas industry. He just knew physical concepts and that they would be useful, and that he tried to build the building blocks so that he can move humanity forward, even if we weren't going to take it up for decades. In 1904, Nikola Tesla talked about how the wireless he was working on would one day come to the point where you'd carry a device in your coat pocket and you could pull it out and talk to anybody wirelessly in the world and send pictures and movies. And again, this is some of the statements he made and some of the essays he wrote that the scientists of the day piled on him and made him look like he was, mentally insane. But he was a visionary. And the more you dig and the more you see what he said and where we've gotten to, you'll realize he was just ahead of his time in most cases. I'm not saying that the man was perfect, but he was a pretty amazing person to follow. But on this site, Tesla lost control of the property. So J.P. Morgan, when Marconi got the first transmission off, even though he used 17 of Tesla's patents, Morgan calls Tesla on the carpet and said, "How'd this guy beat you?" He's like, "First, he's using my technology. He's violating my patents. That's our work. We could go after that. Number two, I'm doing something so much bigger. He's doing Morse code. I'm doing two-way voice with multiple channels. He had already invented ham radio. But Morgan was like, I didn't need that. I needed Morse code. I needed to know the New York Stock Exchange ticker tape when I'm in London. And, small monetization. So Marconi was smart. He took what he was working on in wireless, and he did small things like a few miles out, he would be able to, signal ships. And there was a market for that. He was, working with the U.S. Navy. When the U.S. Navy was trying to work with Tesla, Tesla was very difficult. As people create their invention, there are times where they are very passionate about their invention and their baby. He was very aloof in terms of dealing with the Navy. Couldn't cut a deal. Marconi got all the business, and so the money followed Marconi. Tesla did not have the money to finish what he was trying to do here at Wardenclyffe. He lost control of the lab. Actually, to Jacob Astor's brother. Jacob Astor goes down on the Titanic. The Titanic is kind of pivotal. Marconi's signals helped save people's lives because the Marconi system was on the Titanic. And, Nikola Tesla, one of his major benefactors, dies on the Titanic, Jacob Astor. And he owes debts to the Waldorf Astoria. So they take the property and they destroy the tower. It becomes an industrial site. I talked about that at the beginning of this process. But this is where, this gets inspirational. So I told you I was in public office. I was able to get some state grant funding to help save the place, but it needed a match. And by the way, I lose my election. I leave politics. I go completely into the tech sector. Like you, I commercialize and I'm involved with startup companies. And, but I told the board, I want to help wherever I can. And they did a crowdfund and it set a world record. They raised 1.4 million in 6 weeks from 108 countries, all 50 states of the United States, 33,000 donors. And that crowd is chock full of innovators and venture capitalists and folks like Elon Musk, who participated in the crowdfund. And then a lot of these innovators wanted to have a voice on site of what should happen. And so the board got me involved again so that I can reach out to these innovators and vision out what we should do on site and keep them involved and also get them involved even at a financial standpoint. So we're still raising capital, which I'll get to finish the lab building. We did get the site on the National Historic Register in 2018. We hired all of our architects and engineers in 2019. We were looking to start our first construction in 2020. And then there was a worldwide pandemic that we're all very well aware of. But we are very close to getting our permits to start demo of the buildings around the lab and to be able to start construction of the lab. Our mission, Global Science Center. This is not just a Long Island project. This is not a New York State project. I know you're the National Inventors Club. This is not just a United States project. This is a global. 108 countries helped save this location. People all around the world are inspired by Tesla. And our mission is not only to recreate the Tesla lab and open it to the public and give great exhibition in person, but a lot of what we're going to do is virtual, both exhibition, STEM education, and that's really important with our DNA. I keep going to push my arrow, and I realize it's a different format. Education is very important when you're launching a science center. But our goal, and I think you'll appreciate this, is invention education. So we're not going to be talking about the human body and biology. We're not going to be a general science center. We're focused on what was important to Tesla. And again, it's innovation for the improvement of humanity. I think we're both inspired by similar things. And that would be, again, that creative spark and then how to commercialize that creation. And that's a lot of what we want to make sure that we get out there. And like I said earlier, we celebrate Tesla, but we will celebrate the innovators of today and help educate the public on that. And then we want to empower the innovators of tomorrow. And I see a lot of synergy with our mission and your mission. This is a little site plan of the site. So this is the Tesla lab. Are you seeing my mouse, by the way? Not sure if that comes across on this platform.
No, no, we're
Oh, you're not.
not.
Okay. So, well, this is you can see the lab building in the upper right quadrant. It's not the large rectangle, but it's the square. And then just south of that is the old tower base. Everything else on site is fungible. So we're taking down a bunch of the buildings, but the buildings that you see, except for that big rectangle that says Science Center, they're going to be rehabilitated and open to the public. The small one to the bottom left of the tower base is the first building that we should have open by the end of this year with our first exhibit, our first classroom. And it's the first time we're going to be able to have indoor space to welcome folks. And the only reason we're starting there is it's easier, it's cheaper to get permits and to get it open to the public. It'll be fast. And we want to get open to the public as quickly as possible. We are continuing. So this is a picture of that building when it's done. And then the next building will be the Tesla lab building. So it looks a little bit better than that upper right picture. So we've done whatever work we can on the building with the permits that we have, but it's not fully restored yet. And we need to raise another $5 million to finish the lab building. But every dollar that we raise, we have enough operational funding for the next 2 years. Every dollar we raise goes to the lab building. And so we're very hopeful that we'll finish the capital campaign over the next year and a half. The project attracts people from all around the world, everybody from Novak Djokovic, who again tries to instill in us how important it is to make this an international hub as opposed to something more parochial and local. Adam Conover actually grew up here on Long Island and is very passionate about the project, has been very helpful. But I'm not going to go through everybody that's been helpful, but some of the names I mentioned: Vince Cerf is on our board of advisors. Peter Klein, who's here on Long Island, but a major philanthropist, just joined our actual board of directors, but was on our board of advisors for quite some time. Dusan Stojanovic is an international investor who happens to be a distant relative of Tesla. And he was the first one that came to the site and said, "You have international eyeballs of tech innovators and investors. You're a fool if you only do a museum and you don't try to help the Teslas of today." And that's part of our mission now. Our STEM education board, everybody from Chris Lawrence, who used to be the head of STEM education at the New York Hall of Science. He's now a tech entrepreneur, but very passionate about what we're passionate about and what you're passionate about, Brian. And so he wants to make sure that we come up with programming that moves the dial and is not just another science center. Dr. John Cohen, left column, second from the top. He's the mad scientist, but he's an amazing, innovator in his own right. He's the head of the AI lab at MIT. He's the IBM fellow there. But if you Google John Cohen, check out his videos. He is amazing and very passionate about getting kids to think of themselves as inventors. So this is what I was talking about. We have a $20 million project. We actually raised $11.5 million. So this slide deck is a little outdated. So it's $8.5 million left to raise, but the next $5 million will finish the lab building. And then the rest of the funding goes towards exhibition and an endowment to make sure the place remains sustainable long after our doors open.
Very nice. Well, it sounds like you have an amazing platform to really catapult this Tesla Science Center to the next level. And it seems like you have all the pieces together. So we wish you all the best. And I'll be cheering and watching and visiting the Tesla Science Center. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark Alessi, Tesla Science Center. Take care and keep doing what you're doing and taking your inventions to the next level. Take care.